Hello and welcome to 10 Ton Potato, the podcast where we talk about actual productivity on the Office 365 stack. I am Brad and I'm joined by my co-host Craig.
Nario.
We are the co-founders of GT Consult, and in the show today we are going to be diving into the Microsoft Purview set and suite of tools that is a set on Office 365 and Azure and everywhere else. And we're going to tell you if it's a gimmick, if it's a major productivity boost, and whether you are a beginner, an expert, a developer, a user, a potato lover or potato hater. This podcast is for you, so sit back, relax, and enjoy this show. This is 10 Ton Potato. And we're talking Purview.
Excellent. Well, Brad, it looks like you're in a different location. Your video area seems to have changed a little bit behind you. So you're in the UK for the first time. What's happening? How's it going?
Yes, UK bound, UK living and breathing here. We're heading up the GT UK expansion, and a lot on my plate, but good to be here. We're no strangers to the UK. We've been back and forth since 2016, so now it's just a more permanent position. I do miss the space that I used to have, and I'm not sure if I miss the weather yet. I'm a large man, and I quite prefer the cold, so I am enjoying that.
Still must have been a shock going from 40 degrees down to, what are you at the moment?
Well, from probably 40 to 4.
Yeah.
But, everything's warm inside. It's just much cooler between the buildings and the commute, really.
Fair enough. So, with that out of the way, let's move on to some news. So, obviously, there's been a lot of talk of Copilot and implementations, people getting ready, customers shuffling to get their data into some semblance of order, and most people not really trusting what's available to staff members via Copilot. What most of them probably don't realize is that if their data isn't secured and was leaky in the first place, the staff could find everything through the enterprise search, right? But clearly that most people don't realize that. But I think what Microsoft has found out is that this has become a major concern to everyone who's implementing Copilot. And they've released something called Microsoft Restricted SharePoint Search. And for short, they called it
RSS.
RSS.
Because that's not confusing.
Yeah, if they couldn't confuse us with the rest of their acronyms. This one's really confusing, but what's exciting about it is that it allows you to provide a list of curated SharePoint sites where you can set up, or your administrator can set up, allowing people to search those sites, and that's up to 100 SharePoint sites. So that's pretty cool, assuming that you've only got 100 SharePoint sites that you want searched. But by default, this RSS is going to be off. So by default, you should get access to everything that you've got search available against in your tenant. But you turn it on, you've got up to 100 sites that can be curated. Anything that is from your frequently visited SharePoint sites, anything that's in your OneDrive, any files that were shared directly with you, or any files that you can view or edit or have created. So if you've seen the file before, you've worked on it, it will show up in your search, but otherwise it'll only show up on sites that have been allowed. So yeah, interesting.
Well, it is interesting because, RSS is traditionally a feed that you would subscribe to get updates on something that you've subscribed. Now it is a feature to not give you information on something you might likely subscribe to.
Yeah, so it's restricting that. But I suppose there are only so many acronyms in this world. But it points an interesting finger at bad governance and security as a whole, which I think we've been through enough SharePoint implementations to realize that is obviously a problem. And organizing or organizations managing their data or configuring it is a major problem. And that, weirdly, is an awesome segue into today's discussion on Purview, or specifically Microsoft 365 Purview. So let's get into it. Brad, what is Purview? What's it used for?
Well, it's pretty simple. Microsoft described Purview as a platform that protects you and your data. And we're done. That's what Microsoft Purview is. I don't think we need to delve any further into it because this is a slippery slope.
Okay, so it protects your data
No, you
and
and your data.
you.
That's the byline.
Okay.
So
Okay. Well,
that's it when you want to talk at a basic high level. If you want to start getting into it, Microsoft Purview combines the former Azure Purview and Microsoft 365 compliance and services together into a unified platform to help your organization gain visibility into data across your organization, safeguard and manage sensitive data across its life cycle, wherever it is, govern data seamlessly in new, comprehensive ways, and manage critical data risks and regulatory compliances. So, you can split it up into three pillars essentially. You've got the data security for information and cybersecurity teams. You've got data governance for data consumers, engineers, and data officers. And then you've got risk compliance, which is essentially your risk compliance in your legal teams. So sticking with regulation. And there's three kind of spaces that you're going to play in. If you're used to Microsoft 365 and you're on SharePoint and Teams and Exchange, you're going to see a compliance area in your admin portal, and that's going to allow you to do a lot of the Purview features. What's the other side of it is what happens when you have data outside of that, which many organizations do. Then you're going to tack on the Azure Unified Data Portal, where you're going to point it towards S3 buckets or SQL databases or just about any other data source you can imagine outside of Office 365. Then you're going to be using that Azure location. And then you want to start using that data. You're going to start using the Microsoft Purview Studio and start to identify that information and preview it in Power BI, SQL Server, Azure Synapse, or Microsoft 365. And so we've got a number of links that we'll put in the description and a number of areas where people can look at more data on how all of this fits together. And you're going to need a lot of time to figure it all out, but I would recommend just checking the links either in the blog or in this video to start to fully understand where everything lives. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Unified data portal for everything outside of Office 365, and then the Purview risk and compliance portal for everything in your SharePoint, Exchange, Teams world.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. And then I start to understand why the Azure Purview component is now part of that compliance center in 365, because they really do the same kind of thing, just in different locations. But I think for me, what's quite important, because my head's already exploding with everything that you just described, let's break that down into the pillars and let's just talk about those. So let's start off with security. I've got my 365 instance. I've got my Microsoft 365 score and my MFA that's keeping me in checks and keeping me safe. What else do I need to manage my 365 environment? Surely that's secure enough.
You know what? I'd love to say yes. I'd love to say you have done everything correctly, but I think you're not going to like my next answer. And Purview is there not just to protect you from outsiders, it's also there to protect you from malicious insiders, um, and or silly mistakes. Okay, so say for instance you've got um, specific data on customers, and for some odd reason you've shared that during a meeting, and in that meeting there were external parties who can now access that information, and you were unsure as to whether you've given them full access or edit access, or you didn't even know they were part of that meeting, and now they've got access to your customer data. I mean, that could have been a mistake or it could have been malicious. And so this is where your purview kind of comes to light. And so you've got a number of different areas that you can start to look at. I mean, the first area is your data loss prevention, where you can set policies on data to either retain, protect, or govern that data. So you can say, if you find something along these lines, keep it for 5 to 10 years so that nobody can delete it. If you find something along these lines with specific company, if it's tagged as a company personal IP or company IP, protect it from being shared to anyone externally. That's your DLP kind of space. Then you've got Microsoft Purview information barriers, or RB, not to be confused with RBS. Restrict users from communication. So, what happens if there is a need for an invisible wall in your business between two business units, or specific people in the business? So, I want to stop marketing from chatting to our development team because I don't want them to know about something that we're going to release. So you can set up information barriers, specifically in teams, to stop users from finding other people in the business or adding them to a team or chatting with them, or screen sharing, or even placing a call, or even sharing files with them. You can set that up in Purview information barriers. You can go further with Purview information protection. So automatic data classification built into Office 365 from SharePoint to your Office apps. If you've set up specific policies to identify trainable classifiers, so hey, if somebody is sharing credit card numbers or social security numbers or ID numbers and national insurance numbers, passport information, label that immediately and then apply policies to it. But you can do more with the information protection. You can create your own custom trainable classifier. So barcodes or serial numbers within this business, if anything is tagged with that, let me know. Do something about it. Or sensitive information types. Are people talking about other people? Are they using derogatory terms? There's a host of different sensitive info types that you can attach, and then you can even do exact data match. So I am looking for this serial number, I'm looking for this asset number, and you can find that with the Purview information protection. Then you've got insider risk management. So this is in itself one of those areas where someone gets a bad performance review and wants to now share all the information that they've been working on with another company, or somebody accidentally gets phished and they are believing they are talking to someone else and want to share company information, personal, private company information. Then you can put together the insider risk management, which is slightly different to DLP, because what this does is it anonymizes the data so that you can't see who's sharing what with or who's actually sharing, but it will set off certain alerts and let you know that this is a possibility that's happening in the business, and that is in itself an entire area to manage and maintain your risk within the business on your information. You have privilege access management. So this is great for if one of your admin accounts does get compromised, you can set up just-in-time privileges for the admins to essentially, if they want to do something that requires higher escalation or higher privileges, it goes through an approval workflow to allow them to complete those actions within a certain time frame. So just like a vault lock at a bank, it only opens at this time, between this time and this time, just with a number of approvals throughout. So again, the Purview in Office 365 is very detailed, very layered, and very specific for pretty much every need for risks internal to the business, as well as compromised accounts. It can lock those things down. So even with your secure score being full and your MFA being enabled and your strong passwords and all those fantastic tools for protecting your data, if for whatever reason they are compromised or you're internally compromised, this is where Purview really shines.
Okay, sheesh, that's a whole lot of security. I mean, it sounds like this is a full time job just to be running and tracking Purview. But I think you've unpacked a lot there in terms of security. Let's take a little look at the governance kind of column of features now. Governance always makes me think of that old adage of junk in and junk out. How do you go about managing that the data going into SharePoint is of the highest quality? Because obviously there are a lot of standards out there now. You've got your GDPRs, your POPIs, your HIPAAs, your DORAs, that all require specific inputs in a certain way and certain managing. So how do you keep that all together? How do you ensure that the data is kept in the right places? Because as you mentioned, biggest threats internal, and those people internally, whether they're premeditating to mess with your data or they're doing it out of plain ignorance, they still can mess with your data. So what are the governance options there?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you said, rubbish in, rubbish out. So with the combination of DLP and information protection, all data can be scanned on creation and then identified and tagged. So that's what's running on SharePoint and Office 365. And when it comes to other locations outside of the Microsoft platform, we need to look at the Azure offering of Purview. So Microsoft Purview includes the unified data governance solutions that help you manage data services across your on-premise, multi-cloud, and software as a service. That includes Azure storage services, Power BI like SQL or Hive, services like Amazon S3, and many more. And this is where you look at Microsoft Purview Data Catalog, the data estate insights, the data mapping, the data policy, the data sharing, and all of these tools that can manage the data coming in, identifying what it is, and then ensuring that it is tagged and run through not only your government policies like HIPAA, POPI, GDPR, across multiple different regions. Microsoft's got a template for pretty much all of them. It will create an up-to-date map of the entire estate of all of your data and classify that with an end-to-end lineage. So this is where it came from. This is who's been interacting with it. This is who has rights to manage it. These were the last people to interact with it, and this is the lineage from end to end with that data. And so then you can obviously create a very secure environment, not just within Office 365, but across your entire data estate. You can then generate insights about how your data is stored and used. You can manage the access to the data in your estate securely and at scale. And this will then allow you to easily, and I say easily because there obviously is some setup around this, but manage all of your data estate in one location.
Okay, and I mean with the ease of sharing data out of Microsoft 365, because you can use it as an extranet, right? You can share an entire SharePoint site, and you've got teams where you engaging with guests from other organizations. I suppose that becomes more and more important, and especially the one thing that sticks out in my mind there is the Purview data sharing, like understanding where your data is being shared, when to cut that sharing off, etc. So I think that's pretty important. So we're stopping people getting in. We're stopping people letting the data out. But what I understand from these systems in working with clients for a long time is that it's never foolproof. That you're sitting in this area where there's the risk that someone could just go and start deleting things surreptitiously from a location. And you really need to understand what people are doing and preventing them from covering their tracks, especially if it's malicious. So what does Purview offer in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, again, uh, if you're able to extract data with your good policies that you've set up, the idea is then identify the life cycle of that data and identify how it happened, who did it, when it happened, what devices, and really have an audit trail. So the e-discovery in Purview will allow you to do that. Um, Purview also includes risk compliance solutions to help your organization minimize compliance risks and meet regulatory requirements. So you need to show this is what happened, this is when the breach happened, this is where the data was sent, this was the time it was sent, this was the account that was used. And so you've got Purview audit, you've got Purview communication compliance, you've got Purview data lifecycle management, and you've got Purview e-discovery to help you identify exactly what happened with that data, when it happened, who used it, what devices it came from, where in the world it all happened from, IP addresses, the whole bang shoot. So even in the scenario where something has slipped through the net or was bypassed, you need these tools to then retroactively comply to say, look, this is what happened. I can tell you exactly how all of this happened. So yes, there is that. Let's call it a reactive side to Purview.
Sounds like an awesome place to build a LLM based on all of that audit data, the communication via email, the all of the data life cycles, etc. And I suppose that's where e-discovery is really going. So that all sounds awesome. I know, we're on an MSDN. We have E5 licenses, so we've got access into everything that has to offer in Purview. And with all of this information that is available to you to keep you secure, which is so important in this day and age. I mean, I think if you listening around it, the biggest growing area of jobs is around security. Why wouldn't everyone be setting up Purview? What are the drawbacks that we have here?
Yeah. So here we go. Why doesn't everyone just turn on Purview, turn on all of the items, audit, e-discovery, data lifecycle management, data sharing, data policy, data map, data catalog, and then bang in a few others like the the Purview in Office 365 start turning on information protection, information barriers, data loss prevention. Um, all of these cost money. And they're all also based on specific licensing. So, obviously, in the Office 365 space, you need a combination, if not an E5 license, to activate a lot of the features. If that is not available, you've got to have a look at a combination of certain aspects. So if you're just on a business premium license, you won't have access to certain things, and you've got to add compliance portal options, which is all additional cost, but obviously sometimes very necessary. If you're jumping across to other data in other locations, and you need to have Purview build you a data map and then interact with that data catalog, then you're going to be spending some Azure credits, essentially. So you're looking at capacity units with the Elastic Data Map, and that is not complicated. I think it's actually pretty straightforward. Each preview account starts at 1 CU, which is a capacity unit, which is equal to 25 operations per second and 10 gigs of metadata storage. So over an hour, if you do more than 25 operations per second, you're going to jump up to another CU. A CU is, essentially any capacity unit on 25 ops. 25 ops is operations. An operation could be anything from create, read, write, update, delete, based on the metadata that it is creating. And so if it's reading 10 gigs of data, where it's got over 1 million different combinations of operations, you're going to burn through those CUs, and one CU is essentially 41 US cents per hour. I noticed I could only make it in one region, which was European North for me. I think that's because that's where our compliance center was available. But yeah, essentially all the data that it reads, it then creates metadata for that to create the map. And if you run out of that data, then you're also going to go up in pricing. It is obviously set up to be elastic, so you can say, send it. I want you to cover as much as you possibly can in a short amounts of time, and you'll spend quite a bit of money on the CUs, or you can lower it. The other aspect to this is it's not a one-off scan. I mean, this is continuously running through your organization based on changes. So that cost is going to be I don't know, let's call it a daily cost on however much it's going to be scanning, unless that data is obviously in cold storage and doesn't move. But if it's connected to an API or hot data that comes in regularly, it's going to start being quite expensive. And so I do believe you can set an auto scale and provide hard and soft limits. So you can manage your overall budget, but if it's not scanning all of your data in the time that you want it to, you are going to have to scale it up until it manages to. And so, yeah, the other side of things is, whilst that area I think is fair, charges you for CPU usage and storage, and it's near enough makes no difference, 41 cents per CU. There were a number of things that I saw free in preview, such as the business workflow and the self-service data access, which says free in preview. So I would assume that Microsoft will have a look and see how much usage is in that space, and then might tag on an additional tax or a license to get more out of the purview. So, number one, it's complicated. That's why not everyone is setting these policies up. If you don't have a risk and compliance manager internally that understand what policies need to be put in place, it is difficult to then figure that out. Number two, once the policies are in place, you have to tweak them and manage them accordingly. Because if you're getting too many red herrings, your team are just going to ignore it, and then you aren't going to get the protection that is available. You're simply going to ignore it and go, nope, that person's not doing anything wrong when they could be. And number three, it could be relatively expensive, depending on the need. So, yeah, whilst
Okay.
everything's there,
Well,
yeah.
I was going to ask you what kind of resources you'd need to deploy this. It seems like you need a cost accountant to start off with. But what would, all jokes aside, what would be the kind of resource that you would imagine utilizing the tools within
So
Purview?
straight away, you need to as a business, what type of government regulations are you bound by? And straight away, if you know that and you have an answer for that, you then need to attach those policies in Purview, which means you need an information architect to build that out for you. I don't think you can just hand this to anyone and say, "Hey, we need to comply with GDPR. Please go ahead and create me these policies out of the box." You need someone that actually understands. I mean, there are assessments that you can roll out, and it will then provide you a templated assessment. But then there are a number of steps that are manual, that you do need uh, help with. And then obviously internally, you need your risk and compliance officers to assist with what needs to be protected and where that needs to be protected. Um, so I would say it's a combination of risk, legal, compliance, and security, that all actually need to be involved in rolling this out.
Okay. And but as you're saying, like any Microsoft tool, they give you enough small templates that you can do a little bit yourself, and then for everything else, you actually need an expert.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the framework of what is needed, which is great. So you don't start from zero. And if you've ever gone through a GDPR framework, DORA framework, or HIPAA, there are hundreds of lines of requirements that need to be met. So having that template straight away helps massively. Um, but the implementation around it and the ambiguity that could occur in some aspects need to be discussed internally as to, does it affect us or not.
Okay. So, I mean, for one, I'm glad that we're on a E5 license, so we don't need to sit and think through these costs when we are working with the solutions. I know that there are a couple of the areas like the audit, etc., that you can run in the current mode without any, as part of your Microsoft 365 SKU, even if you're not on E5. But I think the bare minimum is E3 to get a purchase on license. But I think there's so much good functionality here. What would you say? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Is it a win? Is it not a win? How do you even decide?
Look, I mean, if you live in a world, especially if you're in finance, this is not a thumbs up, thumbs down. This is a must have. You know, you can't not have this in place. And you might have a third party application that currently does something similar, but I doubt it covers what Purview covers in terms of its how it covers absolutely everything from end to end. So I would say that this is almost a must in that area. For smaller businesses, it's going to be one of those where you go, we can manage certain compliances ourselves, and we can put in policies to ensure that that happens internally. Is it worth the cost to automate? You would have to work that out. If you've got one person responsible for everything, maybe not. But if you have a team and a lot of users, I mean, absolutely. So the more I dug into Purview and over the years seen it all fall under one umbrella, it makes a lot of sense. I think It is complicated, but as are rules and regulations and compliances with different governments, this makes it a little bit easier. I love the lineage of tracking data from end to end. I think that makes a big difference. And so, yes, I think it's definitely worth it. We've got some great resources that we can share through our research in all the new areas. Got some great videos, and yeah, I think a big win here for Microsoft and their legal side.
What I'm basically hearing, though, from you is that those capabilities that are sitting in the organization, like the legal, etc., those are all already there. But what's really missing is that core knowledge of how to set up this environment. So I think GT support team might be a good shout out.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to plug our services, that's one thing. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, once something like this is set up and it's set up well, you're going to reap the rewards. Trying to set it up by yourself from the beginning, it's going to take you a really long time, and you will get frustrated with alerts that are red herrings, that don't make sense. So yeah, I would highly recommend getting someone involved that knows what they're doing and has had some experience in setting it up and managing it over time. I mean, the videos out there, if they're over a year old, they probably won't help you because the platform has already changed. And so, yeah, get experienced guys to come help you.
I think they'll probably have the wrong name on them still.
Wrong name, wrong location. I mean, even an event that Microsoft did last year, they've even removed the link to it because I found some old videos and nothing is in the same location. Things are named different. The experience is completely different. So it's not a lot of up-to-date help. I'm sure that maybe now that they've put it all under one umbrella, the information will start to flow. But it's going to be hard to set up straight away by yourself.
Well, thanks for the information. I think I know enough now to be dangerous. So,
well, the thing is, you can be as dangerous as you want. We've got you covered, even if you are.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you, Craig. What are we talking about next week now that we're back to our weekly schedule?
Maybe we'll have to set up RSS and see whether it works.
That's going to be interesting.
I don't think it's ready yet. It's only coming out at the end of April, so that's unfortunately not it.
Well, we'll keep an eye on our socials, and we'll let you know what we're going to be doing.
Thanks, all.
Thanks, Brad. See ya. Bye.
Bye.